Hello, friend. Yes, you. I see you there, settling in for this journey we're about to take together. Take a deep breath with me. In and out. Good. Now, before we begin, I want to tell you what this is and what it isn't. This is the story of a human being. A man who was born, who suffered, who searched, who discovered something profound, and who spent the rest of his life trying to share what he found. His name was Siddhartha Gautama, but you probably know him as the Buddha. Buddha isn't a name, it's a title. It means the awakened one or the enlightened one. It's what Siddhartha became after sitting under a tree for 49 days and experiencing something that changed him completely. This isn't a religious sermon. It's not evangelism. Whether you're Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, atheist, agnostic, or anything else, you're welcome here. This is simply the story of one of the most influential human beings who ever lived. A man whose teachings have shaped the lives of hundreds of millions of people for 2,500 years. A man who looked at suffering, the fundamental problem of human existence, and found a way through it. You don't have to believe he achieved enlightenment to find his story fascinating. You don't have to become Buddhist to appreciate his insights. You don't have to accept every teaching to learn from his life. But I think you'll find, as we walk through his journey together, that this ancient prince who became a wandering monk has something to say to you, right here, right now, in whatever year you're listening to this. Because the problems he grappled with, suffering, desire, attachment, fear, death, meaning, these are still our problems. The questions he asked are still our questions. And some of the answers he found, well, they might just help. This is going to be long. About 3 to 4 hours. Perfect for falling asleep to or for staying awake through, depending on what you need. Either way, you're welcome here. Get comfortable. Adjust your pillows. Let your body settle. We're going on a journey to ancient India, to the life of a man who changed the world by first changing himself. Are you ready? Let's meet the Buddha. Before we meet Siddhartha, we need to understand the world he was born into. Picture this, it's around 563 BCE. Some scholars say 480 BCE, the dating is disputed, but let's go with the traditional date. The place, northern India, in what's now Nepal, near the border. The context, this is the axial age. The philosopher Karl Jaspers coined the term axial age to describe an extraordinary period in human history, roughly 800 to 200 BCE, when, simultaneously and independently, in several different parts of the world, human consciousness seemed to take a leap forward. In China, Confucius and Laozi are teaching. In India, the Upanishads are being written, and the Buddha will soon be born. In Persia, Zoroaster is reforming religion. In Greece, the pre-Socratic philosophers are beginning to question everything. Soon, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle will emerge. In Israel, the great Hebrew prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, are speaking. Something is happening to human consciousness during this period. People are starting to think differently, more abstractly, more ethically, more philosophically. They're moving from tribal religions focused on ritual and sacrifice to more universal, ethical, internalized forms of spirituality. They're asking new questions. What is the good life? What is justice? What is real? What is the nature of mind? How should we live? Into this world of questioning, searching, spiritual ferment, Siddhartha is born. The India Siddhartha is born into is diverse, sophisticated, and in flux. Politically, it's not unified. Instead, there are 16 great kingdoms, the Mahajanapadas. Some are monarchies, others are republics. They're competing, trading, occasionally warring. Economically, it's a time of growth. Agriculture is productive. Trade routes are expanding. Cities are growing. Wealth is increasing, but so is inequality. Socially, the caste system is solidifying. 4 main Varnas classes. Brahmins, priests and scholars at the top. Kshatriyas, warriors and rulers, second. Vaishyas, merchants and farmers, third. Shudras, laborers and servants at the bottom. And outside the system, the untouchables. Each caste has its role, its duties, dharma, and increasingly rigid boundaries. Religiously, it's complex and pluralistic. The dominant tradition is what we now call Vedic religion or early Hinduism, focused on elaborate rituals, sacrifices to various gods, and the authority of the priestly Brahmins who alone can perform the rituals and interpret the sacred Vedas. But there's also a growing counter-movement, the Shramana tradition, wandering ascetics who reject Brahmin authority, question ritual, and seek spiritual truth through meditation, austerity, and philosophical inquiry. These Shramanas, wanderers, seekers, are experimenting with different practices. Extreme fasting, holding breath for extended periods, standing on one leg for months, exposing themselves to extreme heat or cold, deep meditation, logical debate, yoga and body control. They're trying to escape samsara, the cycle of death and rebirth, and achieve moksha, liberation. There's also a growing philosophical movement, the Upanishads, which are beginning to teach that the ultimate reality, Brahman, and the innermost self, Atman, are one. That liberation comes through knowledge, not just ritual. Into this seeking, questioning, spiritually experimental world, Siddhartha is born. Now let's be clear, we don't know exactly what happened. The Buddha's biography comes to us through texts, written down centuries after his death, passed through oral tradition, embellished with legend and miracle. I'm going to tell you the traditional story, noting where it's legendary and where it might be historical. And I'll try to get at the human truth underneath the myth. Deal? Good. The story begins with a king named Suddhodana, ruler of the Shakya clan, whose territory was centered around Kapilavastu in what's now southern Nepal. Suddhodana's wife, Queen Maya, has a dream. In the dream, a white elephant, a symbol of royal power and purity, enters her womb from the right side. The court Brahmins interpret this: she will bear a son. And this son will be extraordinary. He will become either a great king, a Chakravartin, a universal monarch, or a great spiritual teacher, a Buddha. 2 paths. 2 destinies. But which will he choose? King Suddhodana naturally wants his son to be a great king, to expand the kingdom, to bring glory to the Shakya clan, to inherit the throne. He does not want his son to become a wandering ascetic. So, the king makes a decision. He will shield his son from anything that might turn him toward the spiritual path. He will surround him with pleasure, beauty, luxury, and distraction. If the boy never sees suffering, Suddhodana reasons, he'll never question life. He'll never seek something beyond the palace walls. This decision will shape everything that follows. Queen Maya, pregnant, is traveling to her father's kingdom for the birth, as was the custom. She stops in a grove of trees at Lumbini. And there, the traditional story says, standing up, holding onto a tree branch, she gives birth. The baby, named Siddhartha, meaning, he who achieves his aim, or one who accomplishes his goal, is born. The legends say he emerged from his mother's side, not through normal birth. He immediately took 7 steps. Lotus flowers sprang up where his feet touched. He pointed one hand to the sky, one to the earth, and declared, "I alone am the world-honored one." Is this historically accurate? Almost certainly not. But think about what the myth is doing. It's establishing that this isn't an ordinary birth. This is someone destined for something extraordinary. Whether the miracles happened or not, what matters is this: a child was born who would change the world. 7 days after giving birth, Queen Maya dies. This is likely historical. Childbirth was dangerous. The baby is raised by Maya's sister Mahapajapati, who becomes Suddhodana's second wife. So Siddhartha grows up without his birth mother, his first encounter with loss, though he's too young to understand it. King Suddhodana remembers the prophecy. 2 paths, king or spiritual teacher. He chooses to ensure his son becomes a king. How? By creating a perfect world. Siddhartha grows up in 3 palaces, one for each season: summer, winter, rainy season. Each is filled with beautiful gardens, fountains and pools, the finest food, entertainers and musicians, servants attending to his every need. He's educated by the best teachers in martial arts and warfare. He's a Kshatriya, the warrior class. Statecraft and governance. Literature and philosophy. Mathematics and astronomy. Arts and culture. He excels at everything. He's handsome, athletic, intelligent, charismatic. He's surrounded only by young, healthy, beautiful people. Anyone sick, old, or disabled is kept far from him. Think about this. He's living in a bubble. A golden cage. A carefully constructed reality designed to convince him that life is nothing but pleasure and beauty. He has no reason to question anything. No reason to seek anything beyond what he has. At 16 or 29, depending on the source, he marries his cousin Asadhara. The texts describe her as beautiful, virtuous, wise, a perfect match. And here's an important detail often overlooked. By many accounts, Siddhartha loves her. This isn't just a political marriage. They have a real relationship. Eventually, they have a son, Rakula. The name means fetter or impediment, a hint at Siddhartha's inner conflict. So Siddhartha has everything: wealth, power, youth, health, beauty, intelligence, a loving wife, a son, every pleasure imaginable. He has achieved what most people spend their whole lives pursuing. And yet, something is not right. The texts don't tell us exactly how long Siddhartha lived this way. Some say until he was 29. Others say even longer. But at some point, and this is psychologically crucial, he becomes restless. Think about it. He's lived his entire life in this perfect bubble. Everything has been curated. Every experience controlled. And somewhere deep inside, he must have sensed it. Sensed the artificiality. Sensed that he's being protected from something. What teenager or young adult doesn't eventually question the world their parents constructed for them? So one day, Siddhartha tells his charioteer, Channa, I want to leave the palace. I want to see the city. It's a simple request, but it changes everything. Before we continue with what happens next, let's pause for a moment, because this is important. Siddhartha's story up to this point is about privilege. Extreme privilege. He has everything most people dream of. And some people, when they first hear his story, react with, "Oh, must be nice. Poor little rich boy discovers that being wealthy isn't everything. How profound." But stay with it. Because what Siddhartha discovers isn't just about him. It's about all of us. He's about to encounter the universal human condition, the things that wealth, beauty, youth, and power cannot protect us from. And his response to this discovery, the path he takes, that's what makes his story relevant to everyone, regardless of whether you've ever lived in a palace. Ready? Let's step outside the gates. Siddhartha, around age 29, ventures outside the palace for the first time. His father has prepared for this. The route has been cleared. The streets decorated. Only healthy, happy, beautiful people are allowed to be visible. But despite these precautions, Siddhartha encounters something his father could not hide. This is the famous story of the 4 sights. On his first excursion, Siddhartha sees an old man. Bent, wrinkled, white-haired, moving slowly, painfully, leaning on a staff. Siddhartha has never seen anyone old before. He's confused. He asks Channa, his charioteer, "What's wrong with that man? Why does he look like that?" Channa, surprised that Siddhartha doesn't know, explains, "That is old age, my lord. It comes to everyone who lives long enough. Your body weakens, your senses fade, your skin wrinkles, your strength leaves you." Siddhartha asks the question you're probably asking, "Will this happen to me?" "Yes, my lord. If you live long enough, you too will grow old. Everyone does, no one escapes it." Siddhartha is shaken. He returns to the palace, troubled. On his second excursion, Siddhartha sees a sick man, lying by the roadside, feverish, in pain, body covered in sores, groaning. Again, Siddhartha has never seen illness before. "What's wrong with that man?" "He is sick, my lord. Disease attacks the body. It brings pain, weakness, suffering. Anyone can become sick at any time." "Could this happen to me?" "Yes, my lord. No one is immune to sickness. The strongest person can fall ill. Wealth cannot prevent it. Youth cannot protect against it." Siddhartha returns to the palace, more troubled. On his third excursion, Siddhartha sees a funeral procession. A body being carried. People weeping, wailing, beating their breasts in grief. "What is this?" "Death, my lord. Life ends, the body stops, the person is gone, those who loved them grieve." "Will I die?" "Yes, my lord. Everyone dies. Everyone you love will die. No one escapes death. It comes to all, young and old, rich and poor, good and evil." This is the most profound shock. Death. The absolute end. The inescapable truth. Siddhartha returns to the palace, but he can no longer find comfort there. The music sounds hollow. The food tastes like ash. The beautiful dancers seem like distractions from the terrible truth. His whole world has shifted. On his fourth excursion, Siddhartha sees something different. A wandering ascetic, a shramana, dressed in simple robes, carrying a begging bowl. But there's something about him, a peace, a calm, a dignity. Who is that? A holy man, my lord, a seeker. He has renounced the world to search for liberation from suffering. Is such liberation possible? That is what they seek, my lord. And for the first time since encountering old age, sickness and death, Siddhartha feels something like hope. If there are people searching for liberation from suffering, then perhaps liberation is possible. Perhaps there is a way out. Now, did this literally happen exactly this way? Probably not. Siddhartha was 29 or thereabouts. He almost certainly had seen old people, sick people, dead people before. Even in a sheltered palace, you can't completely avoid these realities for 29 years. But the story isn't about literal first encounters. It's about awakening. It's about the moment when you truly see, perhaps for the first time, the reality you've been avoiding or denying. We all have this moment, or series of moments, when we truly understand. We will age. We will get sick. We will die. Everyone we love will age, get sick, and die. Nothing, no wealth, no power, no achievement, no pleasure, can prevent this. The Buddha's story begins with this realization. This is the first noble truth he'll later formulate, dukkha. Often translated as suffering, but more accurately, unsatisfactoriness. The fundamental unreliability of conditioned existence. Birth is dukkha. Aging is dukkha. Sickness is dukkha. Death is dukkha. Separation from what we love is dukkha. Not getting what we want is dukkha. Getting what we don't want is dukkha. This is the human condition. This is what Siddhartha has just truly seen. And once you've seen it, really seen it, you can't unsee it. Everything changes. Siddhartha returns to the palace, but he's not the same person. He looks at his beautiful wife, his infant son, his luxury, his future as king, and he sees it all differently now. All of this is temporary. All of this is subject to change, decay, death. He's achieved everything the world says should make you happy. And he sees that it's not enough. It can't be enough. Because it's all impermanent. He faces a choice. He could ignore what he's seen. Many people do. Distract himself with pleasure. Lose himself in family, work, achievement. Live a comfortable life and try not to think about old age, sickness, and death until they arrive. Or he could do something radical. He could leave. Renounce everything. Become a seeker. Search for liberation. This is an agonizing choice. He has a wife who loves him. A newborn son who needs him. A father who's raised him, given him everything. A kingdom that will depend on him. Leaving means abandoning all of it. But staying means living a lie. Living as if the truth he's seen isn't true. Pretending that the palace walls can keep out suffering. One night, Siddhartha makes his decision. He's going to leave. The traditional story is heart-wrenching. Let me tell it to you the way it's told in the texts. It's late. Siddhartha wakes. He walks through the palace one last time. He comes to the women's quarters where his wife Yasahara sleeps with their infant son Rakula. The texts say, he stands at the door, looking at them. He wants to hold his son one more time. But if he picks up Rakula, Yasahara will wake. She'll ask what he's doing. He might not be able to leave. So he stands there, looking at his sleeping wife and infant son, knowing he's about to leave them, knowing he might never see them again. He doesn't say goodbye. He just leaves. He wakes his charioteer Channa. "Prepare my horse." They ride out of the palace, out of the city, to the edge of the kingdom. At the boundary, Siddhartha dismounts. He takes his sword and cuts off his long hair, a symbol of his princely status. He removes his royal clothes and jewelry. He tells Channa to take these things back to his father. He exchanges his fine garments for the simple orange robe of a wandering ascetic. Channa weeps. "My lord, don't do this, come back." But Siddhartha is resolute. "I have to do this. I must find the answer to suffering. If I don't try, my whole life will be wasted." Channa returns to the palace alone. Siddhartha walks forward into the forest, into the unknown, into his search. He is 29 years old. A prince, a husband, a father. And he has just walked away from everything. Because this is the part of the Buddha's story that's hardest for many people. He left his wife. He left his newborn son. In the texts, this is called the Great Renunciation, and is celebrated as an act of supreme sacrifice and determination. But to modern ears, especially if you're a parent, this sounds terrible. How could he abandon his family? The texts offer some mitigating context. 1. Yasahara was taken care of. She was a princess living in a palace with servants. She and Rahila weren't left destitute. 2. In ancient Indian culture, renunciation was an accepted path. It wasn't as shocking then as it sounds now. 3. Siddhartha later brought both Yasodhara and Rahila into the Buddhist community. He didn't abandon them forever. But still, he left his wife without saying goodbye. He left his infant son. And I think we have to hold the complexity here. Siddhartha did something that by ordinary moral standards is wrong. He hurt people who loved him. He broke responsibilities. But he was also facing an existential crisis. He'd seen the truth of suffering and couldn't unsee it. He was desperate to find liberation not just for himself, but ultimately for everyone. It's possible to hold both things. This was a flawed decision that caused harm. And this was a human being in crisis, making the best choice he could see in that moment. The Buddha, before he became the Buddha, was just a human being. Confused, suffering, searching, making imperfect choices. That's part of what makes his story powerful. He wasn't born enlightened. He had to find his way, just like the rest of us. Okay, let's continue. Siddhartha is now a homeless wanderer, a seeker. For the next 6 years he searches. He's not alone. Remember, there's a whole movement of shramanas, wandering ascetics, searching for liberation. Siddhartha joins them. He finds teachers. He learns practices. He experiments with different approaches. Let me walk you through his journey. Siddhartha finds a meditation teacher named Alara Kalama, who teaches a form of meditation, leading to the sphere of nothingness, a very high state of meditative absorption. Siddhartha learns the practice. He masters it quickly. He reaches the same attainment his teacher has reached. Alara Kalama is impressed. "You've achieved what I've achieved, stay here, teach with me, we'll lead this community together." But Siddhartha realizes, this meditative state is wonderful, peaceful, blissful, but it's temporary. When I come out of meditation, the problem of suffering is still there. This isn't the answer. He leaves. Next, Siddhartha studies with Uddaka Ramaputta, who teaches an even deeper meditation, the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception. Again, Siddhartha masters it. Again, the teacher is amazed and offers to make him co-leader. And again, Siddhartha realizes, this is even more refined than before. But it's still not liberation. It's a temporary state. It's not the end of suffering. He leaves. Siddhartha now tries a different approach. Maybe the problem is the body. Maybe pleasure, comfort, desire. Maybe these are what bind us to suffering. So he joins a group of 5 ascetics and begins practicing extreme austerities. He fasts for days, weeks, months. He reduces his food intake to a single grain of rice per day, then nothing. His body becomes skeletal, skin stretched over bones, barely alive. He practices breath retention, holding his breath until he passes out from pain. He sleeps on beds of thorns. He exposes himself to extreme heat and cold. He does everything he can to mortify the flesh, to transcend the body, to break the chains of physical existence. 5 ascetics join him, impressed by his dedication. Surely someone practicing such extreme discipline will achieve liberation. This goes on for 6 years. 6 years of self-torture. 6 years of pushing his body to the absolute edge of death. And then one day, sitting by a river, emaciated and weak, Siddhartha realizes, this isn't working either. He's sitting by the river, nearly dead from starvation, weak, exhausted. And a memory comes to him. When he was a boy, sitting under a tree while his father worked, he spontaneously entered a state of meditative absorption. It was peaceful, joyful, clear, and he achieved it naturally, without force or effort. That memory changes everything. Siddhartha realizes, why am I torturing myself? These extreme practices haven't brought me closer to liberation. In fact, my mind is clouded, my body is weak, I can barely think clearly. What if liberation doesn't require destroying the body? What if there's a middle way, between the indulgence of the palace and the extreme asceticism of these practices? He decides, I'm going to eat again. I'm going to take care of my body. Not indulge it, but not torture it either. I need to be strong and clear to find the answer. A woman named Sujata comes to the river to make an offering. She sees this skeleton of a man and feels compassion. She offers him rice milk. Siddhartha accepts it. He drinks. He eats. His body begins to recover. But his 5 ascetic companions are horrified. He's given up, he's weak, he's returned to indulgence. They leave him, disgusted. So now Siddhartha is alone, completely alone. He's tried luxury, it didn't work. He's tried philosophical meditation, it didn't work. He's tried extreme asceticism, it didn't work. He has no teacher, no companions, no method. Just himself and the question, how do I end suffering? This is actually the perfect place to be, because now he has to find his own answer. Siddhartha, recovered enough to walk, comes to a place now called Bodh Gaya in northeast India. He sees a large pipal tree, later called the Bodhi tree, the tree of awakening. Something about this place feels right. He sits down at the base of the tree, crosses his legs, and makes a vow. I will not rise from this spot until I have found the answer. Even if my blood dries up, my bones crumble, my flesh falls away, I will not move until I am awakened. It's not dramatic determination. It's quiet resolve. He's done searching externally. Done trying this technique and that technique. Done following teachers and methods. Now he's going to sit and look and see what's actually true. This is it. Make or break. Enlightenment or death. He begins to meditate. Now, the texts describe what happens next in mythological terms. They say that Mara, the embodiment of delusion, desire, and death, attacks Siddhartha, trying to prevent his awakening. Mara sends his armies, fear, doubt, desire, pride. Mara sends his daughters, lust, delight, and discontent. Mara tries to distract him, tempt him, terrify him. But Siddhartha sits unmoved. At one point, Mara challenges his right to be there, to seek enlightenment. Siddhartha reaches down and touches the earth. The earth goddess appears and testifies. This man has earned the right to sit here through countless lifetimes of virtue. Mara is defeated. He and his armies vanish. Now, did this literally happen? Probably not. But psychologically it's profound, because anyone who's tried to meditate deeply knows. When you sit in silence, everything comes up. Fear arises. Doubt arises. Desire arises. Memories arise. Fantasies arise. Every distraction, every excuse, every reason to get up and quit, they all arise. The attack of Mara is the mind's resistance to stillness, to looking clearly at reality. Siddhartha sits through it all, unmoved, watching, investigating, not indulging the thoughts but not suppressing them either, just seeing them clearly. And then something happens. It's the full moon in May. Siddhartha has been sitting for 49 days according to tradition. Tonight, something shifts. The texts describe 3 watches of the night. A first watch evening. Siddhartha develops the ability to see his past lives. Not just this life, but thousands of previous lives stretching back endlessly. He sees himself born and dying, again and again. Sometimes as a king, sometimes as a beggar, sometimes in heaven realms, sometimes in hell realms, sometimes as a human, sometimes as an animal. Birth, death, rebirth, endless cycling. This is the Buddhist doctrine of rebirth/reincarnation. Whether you believe in it or not, what matters is the insight. Patterns repeat. We keep making the same mistakes. The cycle continues until we break it. A second watch, midnight. Siddhartha develops the divine eye, the ability to see the rebirth of all beings according to their karma actions. He sees, beings with good karma are reborn in pleasant states. Beings with bad karma are reborn in painful states. Cause and effect operate precisely. Actions have consequences. This is the law of karma clarified. It's not fate. It's not predetermined. It's cause and effect. You act, and the results unfold. You shape your own experience through your choices. This is when full enlightenment comes. Siddhartha sees the 4 noble truths. 1. Dukkha life involves suffering/unsatisfactoriness. 2. Samudaya suffering has a cause, craving/attachment. 3. Nirodha suffering can end. 4. Magga, there is a path to end suffering. And he sees dependent origination, praditya samappada, how everything arises in dependence on conditions. Nothing exists independently. Everything is interconnected, conditioned, impermanent. He sees ignorance leads to formations. Formations lead to consciousness. Consciousness leads to name and form. Name and form leads to the 6 sense bases. Sense bases lead to contact. Contact leads to feeling. Feeling leads to craving. Craving leads to clinging. Clinging leads to becoming. Becoming leads to birth. Birth leads to aging, death, sorrow. The whole chain of dependent origination. How suffering arises. How it can be stopped. He sees it all clearly. Completely. Directly. And in that seeing, something breaks. The illusion shatters. The ignorance dissolves. He is free. Fully, completely, irrevocably free. The cycle is broken. Rebirth will not occur again. Suffering has ended. As dawn breaks, Siddhartha Gautama becomes the Buddha, the awakened one. He's 35 years old. He's been searching for 6 years. And now he's found it. According to tradition, the first words the Buddha speaks after enlightenment are addressed to Mara, or to the forces of delusion within his own mind. O builder of the house, you are seen, you will not build this house again, all your rafters are broken, the ridgepole is destroyed, the mind has attained the unconditioned, achieved is the end of craving. The house is the body, the ego, the constructed sense of self. The builder is craving, the force that creates and perpetuates the illusion of a solid, separate self. The Buddha is saying, I see you now. I see how the illusion is constructed. And now that I see it clearly, you have no power anymore. The cycle is broken. Then he sits for 7 more days, just resting in this newfound freedom. What is enlightenment? Okay, friend. Let's pause here. Because enlightenment sounds mystical, otherworldly, maybe even impossible. What actually happened to the Buddha under that tree? The texts say he attained nirvana, literally blowing out or extinguishing, the extinguishing of craving, hatred, and delusion. But what does that mean experientially? The Buddha himself was asked this question many times, and he often answered with silence, or with "it's beyond" concepts. But based on what he later taught, here's what seems to have happened. He saw through the illusion of self. The sense of being a solid, permanent, independent I, that's an illusion. A construct. There's no self existing independently. Just processes, conditions, patterns. When you see this directly, not just intellectually but experientially, something profound shifts. He saw impermanence directly. Everything changes. Constantly. Nothing solid. Nothing to grasp. When you truly see this, grasping naturally ceases. He saw the chain of cause and effect. How suffering arises from craving. How craving arises from feeling. How it all depends on conditions. And therefore, how it can be stopped. Well, he found freedom. Not freedom from circumstances, but freedom from being controlled by circumstances. Freedom from reactivity. Freedom from the endless push and pull of desire and aversion. He found peace, unshakable peace, not dependent on anything external. Is this achievable? The Buddha will spend the next 45 years saying yes, it is, and teaching how. But first he faces a dilemma. The Buddha sits under the Bodhi tree, enlightened, free, and he thinks, this truth I have discovered is profound, difficult to see, difficult to understand, it's subtle, deep, beyond logic. Most people are caught up in desires, pleasures, delusions. They won't understand this. They'll misinterpret it or reject it. Why should I try to teach something so difficult? Better to just remain silent, dwelling in this peace. He genuinely considers not teaching, just living out his life in quiet liberation. But then, according to the story, Brahma Sahampati, a high god in the Buddhist cosmology, appears and pleads, please teach, there are beings with little dust in their eyes who will understand. If you don't teach, they'll be lost. Have compassion. The Buddha scans the world with his enlightened awareness, and he sees, yes, there are people ready to understand. People who are suffering, searching, close to understanding. He thinks of his 5 ascetic companions who left him. They're sincere seekers. They might understand. So he decides, I will teach. And this decision changes everything. Because if the Buddha had remained silent, enlightenment would have been a purely personal achievement. The story would end here. But he taught. And in teaching, he created a path that millions could follow. The Buddha walks from Bodh Gaya to Sarnath and near Varanasi, about 150 miles. A week's journey on foot. He's looking for his 5 former companions, the ascetics who left him when he ended his fast. He finds them at the deer park in Sarnath. When they see him coming, they agree among themselves, here comes Gautama, the one who gave up, who returned to indulgence, we won't honor him. But as the Buddha approaches, something about him is different. His presence, his bearing, his eyes. Despite themselves, they stand up. They prepare a seat for him. One of them says, friend Gautama, welcome. Friend is how they used to address each other. But the Buddha corrects them gently. Don't call me friend, I am the Tathagata, the one who has arrived at truth. I am fully enlightened, I have found the deathless. If you listen, I will teach you. They're skeptical. Gautama, you couldn't achieve liberation through those extreme practices we did together. Now you've given up, how can you claim enlightenment? But something in the Buddha's presence convinces them to listen. And so, in the deer park at Sarnath, the Buddha delivers his first sermon, the turning of the wheel of Dharma. This is the core teaching, the foundation of everything else. Let me give it to you the way the Buddha gave it to those 5 ascetics. Of the first noble truth, dukkha. Now this, monks, is the noble truth of suffering. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, illness is suffering, death is suffering, union with what is displeasing is suffering, separation from what is pleasing is suffering, not to get what one wants is suffering. In brief, the 5 aggregates subject to clinging are suffering. Dukkha is often translated as suffering, but it's broader than that. It's unsatisfactoriness, unreliability, the fundamental fact that conditioned existence is unstable, changing, ultimately unable to provide lasting satisfaction. Even pleasure is dukkha because it's temporary, because clinging to it creates suffering when it ends. This isn't pessimism. It's realism. The Buddha is saying, look clearly at life. See it as it is. The second noble truth, samudaya origin. Now this, monks, is the noble truth of the origin of suffering. It is this craving, which leads to renewed existence, accompanied by delight and lust, seeking delight here and there, that is, craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, craving for extermination. Suffering has a cause. It's not random. It's not punishment. It's not meaningless. It arises from tanha, craving, thirst, clinging. We want things to be other than they are. We crave pleasure. We crave permanence. We crave control. We crave existence or non-existence. And that craving, that fundamental dissatisfaction with what is, that's what creates suffering. Of the third noble truth, nirodha, cessation. Now this, monks, is the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. It is the remainderless fading away and cessation of that same craving, the giving up and relinquishing of it, freedom from it, non-reliance on it. Here's the good news: suffering can end. Not by getting everything you want. Not by changing the world to match your preferences. Not by escaping to some other realm. But by ending craving. By seeing through the illusion that happiness depends on getting what you want. This is nirvana. Not a place. Not a state. But the ending of craving, the extinguishing of the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. Of the fourth noble truth, Magga, the path. Now this, monks, is the noble truth of the way leading to the cessation of suffering. It is this noble eightfold path, that is, right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. And there's a path to get there. A practical, step-by-step method. Not faith-based. Not ritualistic. Not dependent on a god or savior. You walk the path. You do the work. You see the results. The Buddha will spend the next 45 years elaborating this path. Let me break down the Eightfold Path briefly. We'll go deeper later. A wisdom panna. 1. A right view, understanding the Four Noble Truths, karma, impermanence. 2. A right intention, intentions of renunciation, goodwill, harmlessness. Ethics, sila. 3. A right speech, truthful, helpful, kind speech, avoiding lies, gossip, harsh words. 4. A right action, ethical conduct, avoiding killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. 5. A right livelihood, making a living ethically, not harming others for profit. A meditation, samadhi. 6. Right effort, cultivating wholesome states, abandoning unwholesome states. 7. A right mindfulness, a present moment awareness of body, feelings, mind, phenomena. 8. A right concentration, deep meditative absorption, focused, unified mind. These 8 factors aren't sequential steps. They work together, reinforce each other, develop simultaneously. You can't have right concentration without right effort and right mindfulness. You can't maintain right speech without right intention. You can't develop right view without practice. It's a holistic path. You work on all of it gradually over time. After hearing this teaching, one of the 5 ascetics, Khandana, gets it. The texts say, the spotless, immaculate vision of the Dhamma arose in him. Whatever is subject to origination is all subject to cessation. He sees dependent origination. He sees impermanence. He understands. The Buddha declares, Khandana understands, Skandai Anus understands. And thus, Skandai Anus becomes the first disciple, the first member of the Sangha, the community. Over the next few days, the Buddha teaches the others. One by one they achieve stream entry, the first stage of enlightenment. Now there are 6 enlightened beings in the world: the Buddha and 5 disciples. The Buddha sends them out with these words: "Go forth, monks, for the welfare of the many, for the happiness of the many, out of compassion for the world, for the good, welfare and happiness of gods and humans. No 2 of you should go the same way. Teach the Dhamma that is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. Proclaim the spiritual life that is utterly perfect and pure." And so, the teaching begins to spread. Over the next months and years, the Buddha's teaching spreads. People hear about him, come to see him, listen to him teach, and many become disciples. The Sangha grows from 660 to 600 to thousands. Let me tell you about some of the key figures and moments. A young wealthy merchant's son named Yasa has everything, like Siddhartha did, but is unsatisfied. One night he leaves his mansion and wanders until he meets the Buddha, who is sitting outside in meditation. The Buddha teaches him. Yasa understands immediately and becomes a disciple. Then Yasa's father comes looking for him. The Buddha teaches the father. The father becomes the first lay disciple, not a monk, but someone who follows the teachings while living in the world. Then Yasa's mother and former wife come. They too become disciples. Then Yasa's friends, 54 young men from wealthy families, come to see what this teaching is about. They all become monks. The Sangha is growing exponentially. One of the Buddha's most famous teachings is delivered to a group of fire-worshipping ascetics. The Buddha uses their own metaphor. Monks, all is burning. And what is the all that is burning? The eye is burning, forms are burning, eye consciousness is burning, eye contact is burning. Burning with what? Burning with the fire of lust, with the fire of hate, with the fire of delusion. Burning with birth, aging and death, with sorrows, lamentations, pains, griefs and despairs. The ear is burning, sounds are burning. The nose is burning, odors are burning. The tongue is burning, flavors are burning. The body is burning, tangibles are burning. The mind is burning, ideas are burning. Everything is on fire with craving, aversion, delusion. Seeing thus monks, the instructed noble disciple becomes disenchanted with the eye, disenchanted with forms. He becomes dispassionate. Through dispassion, he is fully released. With full release, there is the knowledge. Fully released, he understands. Birth is ended, the holy life fulfilled, the task done. There is nothing further for this world. 1,000 fire-worshipping ascetics hear this teaching, and all of them achieve enlightenment on the spot. The Sangha grows by 1,000 in one night. A wealthy Brahmin ascetic named Mahakasyapa meets the Buddha on the road. He immediately recognizes something extraordinary in the Buddha. He prostrates and says, "You are my teacher, I am your disciple." The Buddha accepts him. Mahakasyapa becomes one of the Buddha's foremost disciples, known for his ascetic practices and deep meditation. Later, when the Buddha is old, he'll hold up a flower in silence. Only Mahakasyapa smiles, understanding. This becomes the founding moment of Zen Buddhism, the transmission outside the scriptures, direct mind-to-mind understanding. Two friends, Sariputta and Moggallana, are followers of a skeptical philosopher. They're searching for truth, but haven't found a satisfactory teacher. One day, Sariputta encounters one of the Buddha's disciples, Assaji. Sariputta is struck by Assaji's peaceful demeanor. He asks, "Who is your teacher? What does he teach?" Assaji says, "I'm just a new student, I can't give you the full teaching, but I can give you the essence. Please, tell me what you can." And Assaji recites, "Of those things that arise from a cause, the Tathagata has told the cause, and also what their cessation is. This is the doctrine of the great sage." That's it. 4 lines. About dependent origination. About cause and effect. And Sariputta gets it. Immediately. Profoundly. He achieves stream entry on the spot, just from hearing these 4 lines. He runs to tell Moggallana. Moggallana hears it, and also achieves stream entry. They both become the Buddha's disciples, along with 250 followers they bring with them. Sariputta becomes renowned for his wisdom, Moggallana for his psychic powers. They become the Buddha's 2 chief disciples, often depicted standing on either side of him. After several years of teaching, the Buddha receives a message from his father, King Suddhodana. His father is old. He wants to see his son before he dies. So the Buddha returns to Kapilavastu, his hometown, for the first time since he left. This is intense. He's returning as a wandering monk, begging for food, dressed in simple robes, to the palace where he once lived as a prince. The Shakya clan is proud. They don't want to bow to one of their own. But when the Buddha enters and begins teaching, something happens. His relatives feel the power of his presence, the depth of his realization. One by one, they bow. His father, King Suddhodana, hears the teaching and becomes a stream enterer. He dies not long after at peace. His aunt/stepmother Mahapajapati, who raised him, begs to join the Sangha. The Buddha initially refuses. Women aren't allowed to be monks. But Mahapajapati is persistent. She cuts her hair, dons robes, and walks barefoot with 500 other women to where the Buddha is teaching. The Buddha's attendant Ananda advocates for them. "Lord, are women capable of achieving enlightenment?" "Yes, Ananda, they are." "Then why not allow them to ordain?" The Buddha relents. Mahapajapati becomes the first Buddhist nun. The order of nuns, bhikkhuni, is established. This is revolutionary. In ancient India, women had few options for spiritual life. The Buddha creates a space for them. Remember Rahula? The Buddha's son, left behind as an infant when the Buddha renounced. Rahula is now 7 years old. His mother, Yasahara, sends him to his father. "That monk is your father, ask him for your inheritance." So little Rahula approaches the Buddha and says, "Monk, I like your shadow. Give me my inheritance." The Buddha's heart must have broken and opened at the same time. He ordains Rahula as a novice monk. His own son becomes his disciple. Years later, Rahula achieves full enlightenment. And Yasodhara? She too eventually becomes a nun and achieves enlightenment. The Buddha's family, the people he left behind, find the very liberation he sought when he left them. The Buddha's cousin Ananda becomes his personal attendant. For 25 years, Ananda serves the Buddha. He's constantly at his side. He hears every teaching. He memorizes everything. Later, after the Buddha's death, Ananda will recite all the Buddha's discourses from memory. The texts begin with, "Thus have I heard," because they're Ananda's testimony. Ananda is known for his memory, his compassion, and his devotion. But here's something interesting. Ananda doesn't achieve full enlightenment during the Buddha's lifetime. He's a stream enterer, but not fully enlightened. He's too busy serving the Buddha, attending to practical matters. He doesn't have time for deep meditation. Only after the Buddha dies does Ananda finally achieve full enlightenment. Sometimes service itself is the path, even if realization comes later. For 45 years, from age 35 to age 80, the Buddha teaches. He walks throughout northeastern India, mostly in what's now Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, teaching anyone who comes to listen. His method is remarkable. He teaches differently to different people, according to their needs and capacity. To a king, he teaches about ethical governance. To a farmer, he teaches about skillful action and results. To a philosopher, he engages in logical debate. To someone grieving, he teaches about impermanence. To a householder, he teaches about living ethically in the world. To a monk, he teaches advanced meditation. He never gives the same teaching twice in exactly the same way. He's always responsive to the specific person and situation. Let me share some of his key teachings with you. Everything that exists has three characteristics. 1. Anicca impermanence. Everything changes. Constantly. Nothing remains the same. Your body is changing. Your mind is changing. Your relationships are changing. The world is changing. Even mountains erode. Stars burn out. Civilizations fall. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is stable. Nothing is solid. Once you truly see this, not just intellectually but experientially, you stop trying to make things permanent. You stop trying to hold on. You learn to flow with change rather than resist it. 2. Dukkha, suffering / unsatisfactoriness. We've discussed this. Because things are impermanent, trying to find permanent satisfaction in them leads to suffering. It's like building a house on shifting sand. It's going to crumble. Not because the house is bad, but because the foundation is unstable. 3. Anatta, not self. This is the most radical and difficult teaching. There is no permanent, unchanging self. No soul. No essence that remains the same over time. What you call self is actually a process. A flow. A collection of 5 aggregates, skandhas. 1. Form, body. 2. Feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral sensations. 3. Perception, recognizing and labeling. 4. Mental formations, thoughts, emotions, intentions. 5. Consciousness, awareness. These 5 aggregates are constantly changing. They work together to create the illusion of a solid, continuous I. But if you look closely, where is this I? Is it your body? No, your body is constantly changing. The cells are different than they were 7 years ago. Is it your mind? No, your thoughts and emotions are constantly changing. Is it your memories? No, memories are unreliable and constantly being reconstructed. So where is the self? The Buddha says, there isn't one. At least not in the way we think. There's a process. There's continuity. One moment leads to the next. There's causality. Your actions have consequences. But there's no unchanging essence. No soul that remains the same. When you see this, really see it, a fundamental clinging falls away. Because there's no self to defend, no self to aggrandize, no self to be threatened. This is terrifying to the ego, and liberating to see through. Remember how the Buddha tried two extremes, luxury and asceticism, and found both lacking? The Buddha teaches the middle way, not a compromise, but a path that transcends both extremes. Not indulgence, but not self-torture. Not eternalism, belief in a permanent self, but not nihilism, belief in nothingness. Not attachment, but not cold detachment. The middle way is a path of balance, wisdom, and skillful engagement with life. This is the Buddha's most profound insight. How everything arises in dependence on conditions. Nothing exists independently. Everything is interconnected. Your suffering doesn't arise from nowhere. It arises from specific conditions. When those conditions are removed, suffering ceases. The chain goes like this. Ignorance, right arrow formations, right arrow consciousness, right arrow name and form, right arrow six sense bases, right arrow contact, right arrow feeling, right arrow craving, right arrow clinging, right arrow becoming, right arrow birth, right arrow aging and death. Each link depends on the previous one. Break any link and the chain breaks. This is why the Buddha's teaching is practical. It's not about believing the right things. It's about seeing how suffering arises and interrupting the process. Karma simply means action, not fate, not punishment, just action and consequence. You act, results follow. Simple as that. But karma isn't mechanistic. It's nuanced. The Buddha says, it's not just what you do, but the intention behind it that creates karma. If you harm someone accidentally, that's different from harming them intentionally. If you give from genuine compassion, that's different from giving to look good. The mind matters. Intention matters. And karma isn't cosmic punishment. It's natural consequence. If you cultivate anger, you become an angry person. You live in an angry mind. That's the karma of anger. If you cultivate compassion, you become a compassionate person. You live in a compassionate mind. That's the karma of compassion. You create your own experience through how you train your mind. The Buddha teaches 4 qualities to cultivate. 1. Metta, loving kindness. Wishing well for all beings. Wanting happiness for everyone, not just those you like. The practice, may all beings be happy, may all beings be free from suffering. Start with yourself. Extend to loved ones. Extend to neutral people. Extend to difficult people. Extend to all beings everywhere. 2. Karuna, compassion. Feeling the suffering of others and wishing to alleviate it. Not pity, which is condescending. Compassion, which sees shared humanity. 3. Mudita, sympathetic joy. Rejoicing in others' happiness and success. The opposite of envy. When someone succeeds, you're genuinely happy for them. 4. Upekkha, equanimity. Not indifference. Not cold detachment. But a balanced, spacious mind that doesn't get swept away by circumstances. You care, but you're not overwhelmed. You help, but you don't control. You engage, but you're not attached to outcomes. These 4 qualities, when fully developed, create a mind of extraordinary beauty, strength, and peace. The Buddha teaches 2 main types of meditation. Samatha, calm/concentration. Developing focused, stable attention. usually by concentrating on a single object. The breath. A phrase or word. A visualization. A sensation. The mind becomes calm, unified, powerful. You develop jhanas, states of deep meditative absorption. These states feel wonderful, peaceful, blissful, expansive. But the Buddha warns, don't get attached to them. They're tools, not goals. They're temporary states, not enlightenment. Vipassana insight? Investigating the nature of reality. Looking closely at body sensations, feelings, mind states, mental objects. Seeing impermanence, suffering, and not self directly. Not thinking about these concepts, but experiencing them moment by moment. This is what leads to liberation. Not calm states, though they help, but direct seeing. The Buddha's signature meditation is mindfulness of breathing combined with insight into the three marks of existence. You watch the breath. Notice its changing impermanence. Notice sensations are pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, suffering when you cling. Notice there's no breather, just breathing, not self. Simple, profound, transformative. The Buddha, like Jesus, teaches through stories. Let me share a few that reveal his wisdom and compassion. A woman named Kisagatami loses her young son. He dies suddenly. She's devastated, mad with grief. She carries his body around, begging people, "Give me medicine to cure my son." People tell her, "He's dead, there's no medicine." But she can't accept it. Finally, someone says, "Go to the Buddha. If anyone has medicine, he will." She goes to the Buddha, holding her dead child. "Please, give me medicine to cure my son." The Buddha looks at her with infinite compassion. "I can help you, but first, bring me a mustard seed from a household that has never experienced death." Hope fills her heart. She goes from house to house, asking for a mustard seed from a family that's never lost anyone. Every house has lost someone. A father, a mother, a child, a grandparent, a sibling. Every single house. Slowly, Kisagatami understands. Death is universal. Grief is universal. She's not alone in her loss. She finally cremates her son and returns to the Buddha. "Did you find the mustard seed?" "I did not, but I understand now death comes to all. I thought I was alone in my grief, but everyone has known this pain." The Buddha teaches her about impermanence. She becomes his disciple and eventually achieves enlightenment. This story shows the Buddha's teaching method, not arguing someone out of their pain, but guiding them to see truth for themselves. One day, the Buddha is sitting under a simsapa tree. He picks up a handful of leaves and asks his disciples, "Which is greater, the leaves in my hand or the leaves in the forest?" "The leaves in the forest, Lord." "In the same way, what I know is like the leaves in the forest. What I've taught you is like the leaves in my hand. Why have I not taught you everything I know? Because it wouldn't lead to liberation. I teach only what leads to disenchantment, dispassion, cessation, peace, direct knowledge, enlightenment, nirvana." The Buddha isn't withholding secret teachings. He's being practical. He teaches what's useful for liberation. Nothing more, nothing less. A monk named Malankiyaputta comes to the Buddha with philosophical questions. Is the world eternal or not eternal? Is the world finite or infinite? Is the soul the same as the body or different? Does the Buddha exist after death or not? And he says, if you don't answer these questions, Lord, I'll leave the Sangha. The Buddha responds with a parable. Suppose a man is shot with a poisoned arrow. His friends rush him to a doctor. But the man says, wait, before you remove the arrow, I need to know, who shot me? What's his name? What caste is he? What kind of bow did he use? What were the arrow's feathers made of? Would he not die, Malankyaputa, while these questions were being answered? Yes, Lord. In the same way, Malankyaputa, whether the world is eternal or not eternal, whether it's finite or infinite, the spiritual life doesn't depend on these views. There is still birth, aging, death, sorrow, grief, pain, and I teach the cessation of these. The Buddha refuses to answer metaphysical questions that don't lead to liberation. He's focused on the practical problem, suffering and its end. There's a serial killer named Angulimala, meaning garland of fingers. He wears a necklace of his victims' fingers. He's killed 999 people. He needs one more to complete his vow of 1,000. The Buddha, knowing this, walks directly toward Angulimala. People warn him, don't go that way, Angulimala is there, he'll kill you. But the Buddha continues. Angulimala sees him and thinks, perfect, my 1,000th victim. He chases the Buddha with his sword, but no matter how fast he runs, he can't catch up. The Buddha seems to be walking normally, yet stays ahead. Finally, exhausted, Angulimala shouts, stop, monk! The Buddha turns, I've stopped, Angulimala, you should stop too. What do you mean, you're still walking? I've stopped harming living beings, you have not, that's why I say, I have stopped, you should stop. Something in these words pierces Angulimala's heart. He drops his sword. He falls at the Buddha's feet. I want to change, teach me. The Buddha accepts him. Angulimala becomes a monk. Later, when people discover that the murderer is now a monk, they're outraged. Some want to kill him. But the Buddha protects him. He has changed. That person who committed those acts doesn't exist anymore. This person before you is walking the path. Angulimala practices diligently. He faces his karma. People throw stones at him, spit on him. He bears it all. Eventually, he achieves full enlightenment. One of history's worst murderers becomes enlightened. This shows the Buddha's radical belief, no one is beyond redemption. Everyone has Buddha nature. Everyone can awaken. The Buddha says, imagine you need to cross a river, you build a raft, you use the raft to cross to the other shore. Once you're across, would you carry the raft on your head for the rest of your journey? No, Lord, that would be foolish. We'd leave the raft by the shore. In the same way, monks, I have taught the Dhamma as a raft for crossing over, not for clinging to. When you've crossed over to liberation, even the Dhamma should be let go. Even the Buddha's teachings are tools, not truth to cling to. Use them to cross. Then let them go. The Buddha's life is an all-peaceful teaching. He faces challenges, opposition, even danger. Devadatta is the Buddha's cousin. He becomes a monk and achieves some psychic powers. But he's ambitious. He wants to lead the Sangha. He goes to the Buddha. You're getting old, Lord. Let me take over leadership. The Buddha refuses. I wouldn't hand over the Sangha, even to Sariputta or Madalana. Why would I hand it to you? Devadatta is enraged. He plots to kill the Buddha. First attempt, he hires assassins. But when they approach the Buddha and see his presence, they can't do it. They become disciples instead. Second attempt, Devadatta pushes a boulder down a mountain where the Buddha is walking. A splinter of rock wounds the Buddha's foot, but he survives. Third attempt, Devadatta releases a maddened elephant named Nalagiri to charge at the Buddha. The Buddha, through the power of loving kindness, tames the elephant. It kneels before him. Finally, Devadatta tries to split the Sangha. He proposes stricter rules than the Buddha teaches, trying to make himself seem more pure. Some monks follow him. The Sangha is divided. But Sariputta and Moggallana go to Devadatta's followers and win them back through teaching. Devadatta eventually becomes sick. On his deathbed, he tries to see the Buddha to ask forgiveness, but he dies before reaching him. The Buddha says, Devadatta will be reborn in hell for his actions, but even hell is not permanent. Eventually, he too will have the opportunity to achieve enlightenment. Far in the future, he will become a Buddha, named Atisara. Even his would-be murderer is not condemned forever. Karma plays out. But eventually, everyone has the potential to awaken. The Buddha gets food poisoning from eating spoiled pork or mushrooms. The texts are unclear. He becomes violently ill. He's in terrible pain. But he doesn't complain. He bears it mindfully. And he continues teaching. Ananda is distraught, seeing his teacher suffering. The Buddha tells him, Ananda, this is just the nature of the body, it's impermanent, subject to illness, subject to death, don't cling to it, what I've taught, that's what remains. Even in physical suffering, the Buddha demonstrates equanimity. Some people claim the Buddha was misogynistic because he initially refused to ordain women. The truth is more complex. He did eventually establish the Bhikkhuni order. Women could become nuns, study, practice, achieve enlightenment. This was revolutionary in ancient India. However, the Buddha did establish 8 special rules, Gaurudhamas, that nuns had to follow, placing them somewhat subordinate to monks. For example, even a senior nun must bow to a junior monk. Nuns cannot reprimand monks, but monks can reprimand nuns. Nuns must seek ordination from both monks and nuns. Why these rules? The texts offer various explanations. 1. Practical, the order of monks was established first. In that culture, having women and men living close together without rules could cause problems. 2. Cultural, the Buddha was working within an extremely patriarchal society. Allowing women to ordain at all was radical. Making some concessions to cultural norms might have been necessary for the Sangha to survive. 3. Authenticity question. Some scholars question whether these rules were actually established by the Buddha or added later by the male monastic establishment. What's clear, women in the Buddha's community could achieve full enlightenment. Many did. The texts record numerous accomplished nuns. Mapajapati, the Buddha's aunt, achieved full enlightenment. Khema, a former queen, became renowned for her wisdom. Hadakara, who lost her entire family, became enlightened and a great teacher. The Buddhist nun's lineage has continued for 2,500 years, with some interruptions in some countries, now being revived. So, did the Buddha fully transcend the patriarchy of his time? No. Did he move toward greater equality? Yes. Was his teaching available equally to women? Yes. Context matters. and the teaching itself, not self, compassion, the potential for all beings to awaken, ultimately subverts all hierarchy. The Buddha is 80 years old. He's been teaching for 45 years. He's tired. His body is failing. He decides it's time to die. The Buddha gathers his disciples. I am old now. My body is like an old cart held together by straps. I've taught you everything. Practice diligently. Ananda, his devoted attendant, is heartbroken. Lord, don't pass away yet. What will we do without you? The Buddha says, what more do you expect from me, Ananda? I've taught the Dhamma openly, without holding anything back. There's no secret teaching I've kept in reserve. After I'm gone, let the Dhamma be your teacher. Let your own practice guide you. Be islands unto yourselves, be your own refuge. Take refuge in the Dhamma. Don't take refuge in anything external. Then he tells them, all conditioned things are subject to decay. Strive on with diligence. The Buddha, with a small group of disciples, travels toward Kushinagar. They stop at the home of a blacksmith named Kunda, who offers them a meal. The meal includes something called Sukara Madhava. The translation is debated. Some say it's pork, Sukara equals pig. Some say it's mushrooms, a delicacy that pigs love. Some say it's a truffle-like fungus. Whatever it is, it's spoiled. The Buddha knows it's spoiled, but he eats it anyway. He doesn't want to offend Kunda's generosity. He tells Ananda, serve this dish only to me, give the other food to the disciples, and bury any leftovers. This food is suitable only for a Tathagata. After eating, the Buddha becomes violently ill. Food poisoning, dysentery, intense pain. But he insists on continuing the journey. They need to reach Kushinagar. They reach a grove of sal trees near Kushinagar. The Buddha lies down on his right side between two trees. The texts say the sal trees, though it's not their season, burst into full bloom and shower blossoms on him. Ananda is weeping. I've been your attendant for so long. I haven't yet achieved full enlightenment, and now you're leaving. The Buddha comforts him, enough, Ananda. Don't weep. Haven't I told you? We must be separated from everything we love. It's the nature of things. You've served me with love through body, speech, and mind. You've done well. Continue practicing, and you'll soon achieve enlightenment. Then the Buddha addresses all the disciples. If anyone has doubts or questions about the Buddha, the Dhamma, or the Sangha, ask now, don't have regrets later, thinking, I was there when the teacher passed away, but I didn't ask what I wanted to know. Silence. 3 times he asks. 3 times, silence. Finally, Ananda says, it's wonderful, Lord, I'm confident that not one of these monks has doubts. The Buddha says, you speak from faith, Ananda, but I know, not even one of these monks has doubts about the Buddha, the Dhamma, or the Sangha. Even the least accomplished among them is a stream enterer, incapable of falling away, certain of attaining enlightenment. Then he speaks his final words. Vadhama Sankara Apamadina Sampadetha. All conditioned things are subject to decay, strive on with diligence. Or, in other translations, all component things are perishable, work out your salvation with diligence. These are his last words, his final teaching, the summary of everything. Things change. Practice diligently. Don't be complacent. Work toward liberation. Then he enters meditation. He passes through the jhanas, first, second, third, fourth. then through the formless absorptions, then up and down through all the states of consciousness, and finally, emerging from the fourth jhana, he dies. He's 80 years old. It's around 483 BCE or 400 BCE, depending on which chronology you follow. The Buddha, the awakened one, has entered parinirvana, final nirvana, the end of the cycle of rebirth. The texts say, "The earth quakes, thunder roars, though the sky is clear, the gods weep." Even the natural world responds to the passing of such a being. The disciples are devastated. Many weep openly. But some, those who have achieved enlightenment, remain calm. They understand. This is the nature of things. Even the Buddha is subject to death. Everything that arises passes away. Ananda, still not fully enlightened, weeps bitterly. An elder monk reprimands some who are grieving. "Why do you grieve? Haven't you heard the teaching? All things that arise must pass away. How could it be otherwise?" But other monks defend those who weep. "We know the teaching, we understand impermanence, but we've lost our teacher. Our grief is natural. Let us feel it." Both responses are valid. Understanding impermanence intellectually doesn't mean you won't feel loss. But understanding it deeply means you don't resist the loss. You feel it fully and let it go. For 7 days, the Buddha's body lies in state. People come from far and wide to pay respects. Then, following the custom for great kings, his body is cremated with full honors. His relics, small bone fragments that survive the cremation, are divided among 8 kings who each build stupas, memorial mounds, to house them. These stupas become pilgrimage sites, places where followers can remember the Buddha, contemplate his teaching, practice meditation. In the months after the Buddha's death, Ananda finally achieves full enlightenment. The night before the first Buddhist council called to preserve the teachings, Ananda meditates all night. Just before dawn, he awakens fully. At the first council, 500 enlightened monks gather. Ananda recites all the Buddha's discourses, the suttas, from memory. Upali recites all the monastic rules, the Vinaya. Mahakasyapa presides. This is how the teachings are preserved. Through oral transmission. Monks memorize everything. Recite it together. Correct errors. Maintain accuracy. For about 400 years, it's all oral. Then finally, in the 1st century BCE, it's written down in Pali in Sri Lanka. This becomes the Pali Canon, the oldest complete collection of the Buddha's teachings. The Sangha continues. The teachings spread from India to Sri Lanka, to Burma, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos. From India to Tibet, China, Korea, Japan. From Asia to the West. Today, 2,500 years later, hundreds of millions of people follow the Buddha's path. Different schools, different emphases, different practices, but all tracing back to that man who sat under a tree and saw the truth of suffering and its end. Let's take a moment to clarify what the Buddha actually taught, because there are many misconceptions. Well, the Buddha was not a god. He never claimed divinity. He was a human being who woke up. When asked, "Are you a god?" he said no. An angel? No. A spirit? No. Then what are you? I am awake. The Buddha was not a prophet. He didn't claim to speak for God. He didn't receive divine revelation. He discovered truth through his own investigation and practice. Buddhism is not a religion in the theistic sense. There's no creator God, no eternal soul, no divine judgment. There are gods in Buddhist cosmology, but they're not eternal or all-powerful. They're just beings in higher realms, still subject to karma and rebirth. The Buddha's teaching is more like a philosophy, a psychology, and a practical method than a religion. The Buddha didn't ask for faith. He said, "Don't believe something just because I said it, don't believe it just because it's written in texts, don't believe it just because it's traditional, test it, practice it, see if it works, only then accept it." This is called the Kalama Sutta, the Buddha's charter of free inquiry. The Buddha didn't promise salvation. No one can save you. Not the Buddha, not any God, not any external force. You save yourself through your own practice. The Buddha can show the way, but you have to walk the path. 1. Suffering is real, universal, and can be understood. This isn't pessimism. It's diagnosis. A doctor must diagnose the disease before prescribing treatment. 2. Suffering has a cause, craving/attachment. We suffer when we want things to be different than they are, when we cling to pleasure, when we resist pain, when we try to hold on to the impermanent. 3. Suffering can end. This is the hopeful message. Liberation is possible. Nirvana is achievable. In this very life. 4. There's a path to end suffering. The Eightfold Path. A practical, step-by-step method. 5. Ethical living is essential. Not because God commands it, not because of external reward or punishment, but because unethical action causes suffering, to others and to yourself. 6. The mind can be trained. Through meditation, you can develop concentration, insight, compassion, equanimity. The mind is not fixed. It's malleable. 7. Liberation is for everyone. Not just monks, not just the educated, not just men, not just certain castes or races. Anyone, regardless of background, can achieve enlightenment. 8. Reality is impermanent, interconnected, and empty of inherent existence. Nothing has a fixed essence. Everything is in flux. Everything depends on conditions. When you see this deeply, attachment naturally falls away. What strikes me most about the Buddha is his pragmatism. He's not interested in metaphysical speculation, ritual for ritual's sake, dogma, blind faith, otherworldly concerns. He's focused on, how do we end suffering? What works? When asked questions like, what happens after death, or is there a soul, he often remains silent. Not because he doesn't know, but because it doesn't matter for the path. It's like asking someone whose house is on fire, but what's the metaphysical nature of fire? First, put out the fire. Then, if you want, you can philosophize about it. The Buddha is always practical, always focused on liberation. The Buddha died 2,500 years ago, but his influence continues. Let's trace how his teachings spread and evolved. For the first few centuries, Buddhism spreads throughout India. It's one of several competing spiritual movements. The Emperor Ashoka, 304 to 232 BCE, converts to Buddhism after a particularly bloody war. Filled with remorse, he decides to rule by dharma instead of by force. He sends missionaries throughout India and to surrounding countries, Sri Lanka, Central Asia, Southeast Asia. He establishes hospitals and animal hospitals, plants trees along roads for shade, builds wells, promotes ethical governance. Under Ashoka, Buddhism spreads widely and gains imperial support. The oldest surviving Buddhist school is the Theravada, preserved primarily in Sri Lanka, Burma, Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos. The Theravada claims to preserve the Buddha's original teachings most faithfully. Its scriptures are in Pali, close to the language the Buddha spoke. Its practices emphasize individual liberation through meditation and ethical living. The Theravada monks maintain strict discipline. They live simply, meditate extensively, study the texts deeply. The goal: become an arhat, one who has achieved nirvana, like the Buddha. Around the 1st century CE, a new movement emerges, Mahayana Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhists don't reject the earlier teachings, they just expand them. Key Mahayana innovations. 1. The Bodhisattva ideal. Instead of seeking individual liberation, becoming an arhat, seek to become a bodhisattva, one who postpones final nirvana to help all beings achieve liberation. The bodhisattva makes a vow: I will not enter final nirvana until all beings are liberated. This shifts the emphasis from individual salvation to universal compassion. 2. Buddha nature. All beings have Buddha nature, the potential to become Buddhas. You're not trying to become something you're not. You're uncovering what you already are. 3. Skillful means. The Buddha teaches differently to different people according to their capacity. All teachings are skillful means, helpful tools, not absolute truth. 4. Emptiness sunyata. Not just the self is empty of inherent existence, all phenomena are empty. Nothing has intrinsic being. This is developed extensively by the philosopher Nagarjuna, 2nd century CE. 5. Multiple Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. The historical Buddha is one of many Buddhas. There are Buddhas of the past, the future, and in other realms. And there are celestial Bodhisattvas, Avalokiteshvara, compassion, Manjushri, wisdom, etc., who can be called upon for help. Mahayana spreads throughout Central Asia, China, Korea, Japan, Vietnam. In Tibet, a third major form develops, Vajrayana or Tantric Buddhism. Vajrayana incorporates elements from Indian Tantra. Ritual, visualization, mantra, yantra, sacred diagrams, guru devotion. The idea: use all available means, body, speech, mind, to achieve enlightenment. Why take lifetimes when you could achieve it in this life? Vajrayana is complex, esoteric, and requires a qualified teacher. It spreads throughout Tibet, Mongolia, Bhutan, Nepal. The Dalai Lama is the most famous Vajrayana teacher today. In China, a distinctive form of Buddhism develops, Chan, later called Zen in Japan. Chan emphasizes direct experience over scripture study, sudden enlightenment over gradual cultivation, seeing your true nature. Ordinary mind is the way. Famous Chan/Zen sayings. If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. Don't cling to external teachers. What is the sound of one hand clapping? Koans. Paradoxical questions to break conceptual thinking. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Enlightenment doesn't remove you from ordinary life. Zen spreads to Japan and eventually to the West, becoming probably the most well-known form of Buddhism among Westerners. Buddhism comes to the West in waves. 19th century, scholars translate texts. Theosophists get interested. It's mostly intellectual. Mid-20th century, Zen teachers come to America. D.T. Suzuki, Shunryu Suzuki, others establish Zen centers. Beat poets like Gary Snyder and Allen Ginsberg are influenced. The late 20th century, Tibetan Buddhism arrives, fleeing Chinese invasion of Tibet. The Dalai Lama becomes a global figure. Mindfulness meditation from Theravada becomes secularized and enters mainstream psychology. 21st century, Buddhism is now a significant presence in the West. Meditation apps. Mindfulness in schools and corporations. Buddhist ideas influencing psychotherapy, neuroscience, ethics. But it's also been adapted, westernized, sometimes stripped of its ethical and philosophical depth. There's mindfulness, meditation for corporate productivity, divorced from Buddhist values. There's spiritual, but not religious, taking the practices, leaving the cosmology. This adaptation is both necessary. Buddhism has always adapted to new cultures, and concerning if the ethical foundation is lost, is it still Buddhism? Today, Buddhism has approximately 500 million adherents worldwide. It's the fourth largest religion. But its influence extends far beyond those who identify as Buddhist. Buddhist concepts have entered mainstream culture. Mindfulness, meditation, compassion, non-attachment, impermanence, interconnectedness. Buddhist practices are used in psychotherapy, mindfulness-based stress reduction, acceptance and commitment therapy, dialectical behavior therapy. Neuroscience, studying meditation's effects on the brain. Business, mindfulness training for focus and resilience. Education, teaching kids meditation and emotional regulation. Healthcare, pain management, anxiety reduction. The Dalai Lama has become a global symbol of peace and compassion. Thich Nhat Hanh's engaged Buddhism influenced the peace movement and environmental activism. Buddhist ideas about interconnectedness resonate with ecological thinking. The Buddha's emphasis on investigating your own experience aligns with scientific empiricism. His teaching that no external savior can save you appeals to individualistic Western culture. His non-theism attracts those who are spiritual but not religious. The Buddha, dead for 2,500 years, is still teaching. Today, Buddhism has approximately 500 million adherents worldwide. It's the fourth largest religion. But its influence extends far beyond those who identify as Buddhist. Buddhist concepts have entered mainstream culture. Mindfulness, meditation, compassion, non-attachment, impermanence, interconnectedness. Buddhist practices are used in psychotherapy, mindfulness-based stress reduction, acceptance and commitment therapy, dialectical behavior therapy. Neuroscience, studying meditation's effects on the brain. Business, mindfulness training for focus and resilience. education, teaching kids meditation and emotional regulation, healthcare, pain management, anxiety reduction. The Dalai Lama has become a global symbol of peace and compassion. Thich Nhat Hanh's engaged Buddhism influenced the peace movement and environmental activism. Buddhist ideas about interconnectedness resonate with ecological thinking. The Buddha's emphasis on investigating your own experience aligns with scientific empiricism. His teaching that no external savior can save you appeals to individualistic Western culture. His non-theism attracts those who are spiritual, but not religious. The Buddha, dead for 2,500 years, is still teaching. The Buddha's starting point, the problem of suffering, is still our starting point. We still age. We still get sick. We still die. We still lose what we love. We still don't get what we want. We still face uncertainty, fear, pain. 2,500 years of human progress hasn't eliminated suffering. We have better medicine, more comfort, more entertainment, but we still suffer. Maybe in different ways, but we suffer. The Buddha's diagnosis is still relevant. The Buddha said craving causes suffering. We live in a culture built on cultivating craving. Advertising, social media, consumerism, all designed to make you feel you're not enough, you don't have enough, you need more. More stuff, more success, more likes, more experiences, more. And no matter how much you get, it's never enough. Because the craving itself is the problem, not the lack of what you crave. The Buddha's insight: happiness doesn't come from getting what you want. It comes from transforming your relationship with wanting. This is radical and countercultural, and maybe exactly what we need. The Buddha's life is proof that people can change. Fundamentally, deeply, completely. Siddhartha was privileged, sheltered, unaware. He became the Buddha, awakened, compassionate, wise. Angulimala was a serial killer. He became an enlightened monk. Many people today feel stuck, trapped in patterns, unable to change. The Buddha says, you can change. Your mind is not fixed. Habits can be broken. New patterns can be established. It takes work. It takes practice. But it's possible. The Buddha discovered that sitting quietly and observing the mind leads to profound transformation. This is increasingly validated by science. We now know meditation reduces stress and anxiety, improves focus and concentration, increases emotional regulation, enhances compassion and empathy, changes brain structure, improves immune function, helps with chronic pain, reduces symptoms of depression. The Buddha was right. Training the mind matters. And it works. We live in a culture of extremes. Work until you burn out, then crash. Indulge fully, then diet severely. Engage constantly, then isolate completely. The Buddha's middle way, balance, moderation, wisdom, feels relevant. Not denying pleasure, but not chasing it desperately. Not avoiding pain, but not seeking it masochistically. Not detached from life, but not drowned by it. A path of balance, of wisdom, of sustainable engagement. At the heart of Buddhism is compassion. not just for those you like, for all beings. The Metta Sutta says, "May all beings be happy, may all beings be free from suffering." Not just humans. All beings, animals, insects, everyone. In a world of increasing polarization, tribalism, and dehumanization, this radical compassion feels necessary. The Buddha asks, can you extend goodwill even to those you disagree with? Even to those who hurt you? Not naively. Not without boundaries. But can you maintain compassion? This is hard. But maybe it's the only way forward. The Buddha taught mindfulness, being present to this moment. We live in an age of constant distraction. Phones, notifications, streaming, social media, news feeds. Our attention is fractured. We're always somewhere else, in the past, in the future, in our phones. The Buddha says, come back. Be here. This moment is all you have. This isn't about rejecting technology or progress. It's about not losing yourself in distraction. Right now, as you listen to this, you're practicing presence. You're here. Aware. Attentive. That's the practice. Over and over. Coming back to now. Is enlightenment real? Can you actually achieve what the Buddha achieved? I don't know. I'm not enlightened. I can't tell you from experience. But I can say this. The practices the Buddha taught, meditation, mindfulness, compassion, ethical living, they work. They reduce suffering. They increase well-being. Even if you never achieve full enlightenment, the path itself is valuable. And some people do seem to achieve profound transformation. Deep peace, unshakable equanimity, boundless compassion. Maybe that's enlightenment. Maybe it's something less than what the Buddha achieved. Maybe it's the beginning of the path the Buddha walked. But it's real. People's lives change. Suffering decreases. Wisdom increases. That's enough. That's worth practicing for. Finally, what I love about the Buddha is that he was human. Not a god. Not perfect. Just a person. He struggled. He searched. He tried things that didn't work. He made mistakes while leaving his family. He got sick. He got old. He died. He was human. And yet, he found something. Achieved something. Became something. Which means, if he could do it, maybe we can too. Not to the same degree, perhaps, but we can wake up a little. We can suffer less. We can be kinder. We can be more present. We can walk the path the Buddha walked, even if we don't reach the destination he reached. And maybe that's the point. Maybe enlightenment isn't a destination. Maybe it's the walking itself. Maybe the Buddha's final words say it all. All conditioned things are subject to decay, strive on with diligence. Keep practicing. Keep walking. Keep waking up. That's the teaching. And so, friend, we come to the end of this journey. From a privileged prince to a wandering ascetic, to an enlightened teacher to an old man lying under trees, dying of food poisoning. The life of the Buddha. A human life. A profound life. A life that changed the world. What do you take from his story? Maybe it's the permission to question, to seek, to not be satisfied with easy answers. Maybe it's the courage to leave what doesn't serve you, even if it's comfortable. Maybe it's the discipline to sit with yourself, to look within, to do the work of transformation. Maybe it's the compassion to extend kindness even to those who don't deserve it. Maybe it's the wisdom to see impermanence in everything, and to stop clinging. Maybe it's the peace that comes from knowing suffering can end, not because circumstances change, but because you change. Or maybe it's simply this: you're not alone in your suffering. The Buddha suffered. Everyone suffers. It's the human condition. But there's a path. There's a way through. And you can walk it. The Buddha can't walk it for you. No one can. But he's shown the way. All you have to do is take the first step. And then the next. And then the next. As the Buddha said to his disciples when asked how to practice: ardently, clearly knowing, mindful, remove covetousness and grief with regard to the world. Just practice. With effort. With clarity. With awareness. That's enough. That's everything. And now, friend, as we close, let me offer you the traditional Buddhist blessing. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you live with ease. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease. May whatever merit arises from sharing this story be dedicated to the liberation of all beings. Sleep well. Wake well. Practice well. Thank you for walking this path with me.